able to save it on obviously in my OneDrive, but you can save it in somewhere else that you think you want to go back. And these are different exercises we're gonna do. My cat is here, and so let's start. I just want really to do a so is everyone with me with that, with the concatenate Excel file? If you want to type yes or no, like really fast, everyone, I should get, okay, so we have one yes, yes. Before we start, yeah, perfect. That's actually great. That way, I just want to make sure that if I don't want to start without actually, if someone is having a problem, that's normal. Normally we have problems, and it seems like everyone is fine. And also you can obviously communicate, you can actually talk if you want, whatever works for you. Okay, so let me start. I think that we're okay, or so the first exercise, I just want to show, for example, how to calculate, and this is just a simple thing, but how to calculate, how to basically double select or select several columns or several numbers, or add in a way several things using different columns. Normally, when we try to add something, we just basically click in the summation, and Excel is going to provide us with basically the ideal, or what Excel thinks that we want to add. But if I wanted to add something, I want to have the result in a different area, Excel will not, in this case, it will be difficult for Excel to actually establish what do I want to add. So right now, Excel is actually suggesting, because the only number that Excel is actually seeing is this area. But if I want to actually do it, I could also say sum, and then I could just actually show Excel the area that I want to do. So in this case, and you don't need to just, so basically so this is one area, but if I wanted to actually add two areas, I could just actually hold with Control, and then I could add two different areas. And then I could just close my parentheses and then click Enter. So what it's doing, Excel right now, is actually adding these different columns at the same time. So just as a practice, you can also, if you're not familiar with the names of the functions, you can also click here. For example, if I want to find the minimum, actually, I could do a minimum search, and how do we do it? Basically, we'll come here, we'll just do minimum in this case, and we'll just actually pull the area that we want to do. So it's equal to min, and then I will do my Control again. So in this case, basically I am double selecting, or selecting two columns to do my in this case, my applications or my functions. So right now, this specific cell is actually looking in all these different numbers and identifying the minimum. So why don't you do, if you can actually do the calculations on your own, it's going to actually it's a refresher. I will do it in a minute again, but try to do the total, the minimum, the maximum, and the average. This is actually wrong. So try to do it. I will do it in a minute, but remember, you can actually see the function. So that's what I am doing. I will try to make it bigger. That way you can actually just see the function that I am doing. And just as a refresher also, if you want to see the actual formula, you want that Excel show you what you are doing, you can always click on the cell that you want to do or to use, and then do F2, function 2. And Excel is going to show you exactly what Excel is doing. So in this case, in this cell, I am actually adding this. If you see, I'm not actually including my subtotals because the subtotals are, that will be a duplication of the actual numbers. So try it, and just if you can, maybe a couple of you, when you finish, just type yes, and then I will do it again, just to see how are we doing with this exercise. So it should be just a fast. Really, what we want to practice is control. We can actually use the same function, but also we can actually be adding different columns. And it's a little exercise, but it's actually very valuable. So if you finish, just type that you are done, and then when I will give you some time to do it. Okay. So I see some people already typing done. So let me just go over again, just as if someone is behind. Basically, and this is a very, I am just going to do some. Basically, what we want to practice in this case is just how to navigate. Basically, it's a little bit more the navigation process and double selection. Actually, you could select more columns, but anyway, I'm just going to do minimum. And then I'm selecting different areas here. I'm just going to do the maximum now. And then I'm going to do the average. This is just one way for us to actually use Excel. Oops. So we have the average. Okay, I think that was maybe if you were doing the average, or someone actually, I didn't mention it, and also you can actually talk if you prefer, that is having a problem with the name error. But really what I want to practice is the basically using the functions and actually make sure that you can actually use several columns, basically selecting. I want that you practice a little bit because that's going to help us later. If Ida, are you okay with?
Sorry, I forgot to unmute.
Oh.
I kept getting the name error in all the fields, but I had to go in and manually correct it.
Could be the parentheses, maybe?
I went in and I plugged it in, typed it in versus using the control key, because every time I used the control key, I wound up getting that error message.
Let me just, it's not, we'll practice more, but let me just show you one more time how I'm doing it. And basically I'm just basically I'm calling, when I do the equal sign, I'm calling a function, then I type my function, I open parentheses, and here's where I basically using control, holding control, I am selecting and I am continuing my selection process. And if I had another column or row, it doesn't really matter. I could also be doing something with that column. And this is just a simple step, but I think it's always very valuable. So we're practicing some functions also at the same time, maximum, minimum, and average. So let me actually continue. We'll actually continue to practice. This is just a refreshing a little bit, things that maybe we have seen before. So normally when we get information, and by the way, we're going to maybe do a couple of exercises. We'll stop in about an hour for a break. I will take 10 minutes and then we'll do this again. That way, if you need to make a call, if you need to actually check your email or whatever, we'll have like 10-minute breaks every 50 an hour. So let's say actually you get some information, and I'm sure all of you are always working with different data sets or different what is called sources of information. And what we want to do basically, sometimes we want to combine those information. Maybe you're getting some information from resources, some from accounting, but basically you want to combine them to start actually creating more interesting reports. So one of the problems is that sometimes we get the information with different formats, different ways of actually having the information. And so what we need to start is we need to start learning how to manipulate, how to actually start making our data more stable, more consistent, basically. Even if we're not the owners of that information, we need to somehow put it together and just prepare the report. So the first, I think one of the initial steps is using a function called concatenate. Basically, we're going to put or to glue two different cells together. So normally, for example, if we're actually having the cells, the information of the name of a person, this is I think very simple, but we actually normally you want to have the last name, and this is the correct way. Normally you want to have the last name and then the first name, or it could be the other way. It could be the first name and the last name. But basically the idea is you want to have in each cell or in each column, you want to have one type of information. You don't want to combine. In fact, sometimes we get tables that have first name and last name together, or we have last name, comma, first name. That is actually difficult. That's because you have actually both. If you want to write a letter to Mr. Millet later, and you have Eduardo Millet together, it will be difficult for the computer to separate the names. So the way it is right now, the way I have it here, is the right way. But when you're preparing a letter, maybe you want to have them combined. So how do we start combining this information? So let's actually start doing, this is also a very important function where we are actually having to work with text. So when I want to call a function, if I don't know, for example, I don't remember, and also sometimes actually Excel from version to version, it changes how one function works. So I think that we haven't used it in a while, the function. It's always actually smart to call basically the assistant or the function assistant. So here we have this insert function option, and it's going to actually call a dialog box where we can actually type some characteristics. And actually, for example, in this case, we'll start typing concatenate. And then when you finish typing, you will actually ask Excel to search for that function. In my case, it doesn't take too much because I use this a lot. So it's really fast. Maybe in some of your cases, it's going to take a little longer. But really, I would like to stop and just see if you are having problems, let me know. Or if you were able to do it, just also let me know. This is just when you are ready, basically you will click OK. And this is our first dialog box where we will see the arguments that we need. And this is a good way to actually, if you're not familiar with the function, Excel is even telling you what to do. And so the first thing that I want to do is I want to actually create in this cell in G2, I want to create the name, the full name of the individual. So it's going to be, in my case, B2. So I will actually go here, and I could also click here and just go to the actual cell and click there. I could also type B2. But that's up to, I think it's always better just to go and click. And if you actually saw when you did it in yours, as soon as you type something on text 2, Excel actually created another option, because you can actually concatenate several sources of information, or several, we can call it cells of information. So here I'm going to put Carter here, and then I will click OK. So what is wrong there? What is wrong there? And I'm hoping that someone actually can answer.
It doesn't have a space.
Yeah. Actually, so basically what I did is I just combined those two cells, but Excel is basically doing whatever I'm telling Excel to do. So I need to actually include a space in this case. So I could go here. There's several ways, but we'll practice later another way. And by the way, there's actually a lot of different tricks or little paths that you can actually follow in Excel. So if you know a better way of doing the same thing, I will always actually learn from these courses because I'm always actually learning how to do the same thing in different ways. So I will actually call in the function again. I want to review what I did before. So this is my original one. And what I want to do now is actually add a space. So here I'm just going to do my quotations, space, quotations. Basically, I'm signaling Excel that I want some space there. And then I will actually complement this with my last name. And I'm going to click OK. And now I see that I have actually my name, the full name, the way it should be. Imagine that actually my supervisor asked me, no, I don't want the name in that way. Actually, I want now last name, comma, first name. So how do I do it? Basically, I will do last name. Then in this case, because the comma and Excel knows that is under quotations, basically, I don't need to put the quotations. Quotations, I only need quotations because I'm using space. Excel doesn't know. And then I will put my first name. And then I click OK. So I have another way of using the same information. Actually, if you see, mine is wrong because I forgot to actually add a comma, and then I need to also add a space. That's going to look better. So using the same information, I could create different ways of representing it. So this is really what we want. We want to create our tables in a way that we can actually combine, we can actually move around, we can actually use the information in the best way. And then I need to populate the rest. So I will show you one way I do it. There's actually many. I just actually go here where you can actually see when it changes, there's a little dot or a little square here. When it changes to a plus sign, if I double click, it will populate. It will just gonna populate my cells. So how are we doing? Were you able to do it? Just
yes.
click. Yeah. Okay, so let's continue. Now I will challenge you. Let's do the same for city and state. Basically, I have my city here. I have my state here. So let's actually, if you can actually do it, I will wait a little bit so you can actually start doing it. City and state. So how do you do it? Basically, it's very similar. You will concatenate your city, comma, space, and then your state. So just practice a little bit, and I will give you a minute to practice. And if you are having problems, let me know, because remember, we are going to start building from all these exercises. So if you are actually having, and that's the purpose, actually, we are learning. So if you are having some issues or some things that you want to, that I review, I need to know. So you can type, you can actually talk. If you want to do even a private message, that is fine. But let's actually communicate. So practice, and I will start in 1 minute. I will do it. Also, you can have your coffee, whatever helps you get going. Okay, so again, this is going to be the same. I will just call in my function. I already actually, Excel already knows because it's recently used concatenate. And then I will type my city. I will do a comma here, and I will do a space. But in this case, because I want to do a space, I need to actually do some quotations here. And then I will put my state. And then I will populate my table. So this is actually important if you're actually able to, if you're going to actually even create your own tables, you want to make sure that you have actually the city in a location and then the state, you don't want never to do this the combination as a source of information. We'll actually start later, we'll start actually seeing how do we want to have our data. We want to start creating what is called reports on one end. Basically reports is how do we show our information, and the data, or like our database, is actually is a database. Even in paper, sometimes we think that databases are only Excel or Access or like, those are actually electronic or digital databases. But if you have a list of things, that's actually also a database. So just making sure we want to have basically our information as pure as possible. So when we're actually combining city and state together, we are actually in a way creating some contamination. If we have the state separate, we can actually create reports by state in this case and by city. But if we have both combined, we are actually only able to use that information, in this case only city. So we're limiting some of our possibilities. So this is just some ideas. So now let's continue. Another function that later is going to be important, and sometimes at the beginning we don't understand why, but also I want to calculate the length. How many characters do I have in that specific cell? Imagine that you would like to, for example, you have a big list of numbers or IDs, and you want to make sure, you want to validate that the social security number, how many numbers do we have? I think it's 9. So you wanted to know that all your cells have 9 characters. So that could be a validation process, for example. So you want to actually maybe know how many characters in each cell. So this is how we do it, and we'll use it for other things, but it's very simple. So I'm just going to actually call my dialog box, and later when you actually are familiar with these functions, you need to only type. You don't need to actually go and get the formula. So I will actually go and do it. I will go and type the length function. In this case, it's actually, in my case, is length, L-E-N. And then I will click OK. And this is a very easy function. The only thing it's going to ask me Excel is what cell do you want the length from? So in this case, I'm just going to do it for last name. And I'm going to click OK. So Excel is telling me that Carter, the last name Carter, has 6 characters. So I populate, and I have all this basically the how many characters they have. So Sanchez has 7, Ryan 4. So do the same for your first name. You can start maybe practicing typing. In this case, I'm just typing directly because I already know the function. But I know that if I forget, I know where to find it. And the next thing that I want to do is I want to add what is going to be the, and this is just a simple addition. Sometimes we just think that we can only add using the summation function, but we can also add just by selecting. So let me just practice and do just a regular addition. And then I double click. And basically that's what we need. So we are actually counting the number of characters, and then we are just adding them. There's actually a great question. I'm sorry, there's a great question. I should stop. About if there's a reverse of concatenate. We'll actually do something like that. We'll actually do some concatenate, reverse concatenate. It's not as clear as it's because we need to give more information to Excel, but we'll do it in a minute. Oh, there's another question also, if we're actually talking about dates, if we should actually have the day, the month, and the year. Actually, in the case of dates of it is the Excel already knows when you can actually go here and select a date, a short date, for example, or long date. So in a way, Excel already knows what type of information. So you don't need to, in that case, you don't need to separate them, but that's a great question. So always actually try to have your raw data. That's what I call raw data without, it's very different. We'll actually learn, like we want to create reports and we want to create our data sources or our data separated. In the case of dates or time, for example, Excel already knows. So you can actually type directly the time. And we are not going to cover in this training how to work with data, but you can with dates. I'm sorry, dates. But Excel already knows. For example, you can do computations on dates. Like if you are in the HR section of the organization, you can even calculate like how many days, how many hours. You can all do all those computations using dates. Yeah, so yeah, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna do left, mid, right functions. It's not as easy as that, but we'll do it in a minute. Actually, the next part is that. So, so let's continue. So we already know the number of characters that we have. And now what I want to do, I am your boss, so I want to start creating maybe an ID for our employees. But I don't want to show all the characters of the social security number. Actually, I have seen many organizations, and I think it's very smart. When they have a sign-in sheet, they don't show all the social security number. Basically, they just show maybe the last 4 digits. Obviously, we can type, but we don't want to be typing. That's not really what we want. In this case, we have only 10, but imagine if you have 2,000, that will be a lot. But I know that I have my social security number in my column C. So what I need to do is basically just get the characters, the 4 digits of and in this case are going to be the right of the cell. So if you see the cell, you can actually have to the left, to the right, and then in the middle. So let's start with the easiest one. We are going to do some progressing here. So let's actually do it. And we want to actually get the right characters, 4 characters from the right. So we'll start actually, Excel is, if we say 4, is going to count inverse, is going to be the last one, then the next one. So 4 is going to actually get us. So let's actually call the function. If you already know the function, you don't need to do this. And in this case, I'm going to do right. And then I will actually search for the function. Excel already found my function. I will stop here to give you some time and also look for some questions. There's a question. I don't know if we were able to actually do the recording. I don't have the, oh, actually, yes. Yeah, it's already recording. I can see that it's already recording. So someone actually is recording. Okay, so we'll do right here. And it's very easy function. Actually, I'm doing it in the wrong cell. I'm just going to do it in the first one. And I will signal the text. The first thing Excel is asking me is, okay, so what do you want to actually, basically, what do you want to extract the information? What text do you want that I will use? In this case, it's going to be a social security number. And those, by the way, are not real. And then I need just to put how many characters do I want. In this case, I want 4 characters. So I will just put 4 characters and I will click OK. I will stop here to give you some time. And then I click OK. And then I populate. And there I have my my last 4 digits. So let's continue. And now I'm going to actually ask you to do the same, but for the first 2 digits, so we did right. So we were coming from the right. Now we're going to do the left function. So do this the same for the last name and also for the first name, but just actually get 2 digits. So I will give you maybe 1 minute. So try to do it. In this case, I'm just going to call the function. In this case, it's going to be left. And I will leave it here for a minute. So try to actually do the same for first name and last name and then first name, 2 digits. And if you have questions, I'm actually looking. there's also we'll do the text to column. That's another way you can actually separate from information. There's some disadvantages, and I we'll learn. So actually, I think it's a very powerful also function. But this, yeah, we're on the right track. We're on the right track. So let me just do it. So left, in this case, what I want is the last name first. So last name, and I just want 2 digits. And then I want also left, and I could start typing. I already know the function. Left, in this case, is going to be the first name, comma, 2. So I already have my functions. I populate them. And the last one, the last exercise, I want to create my final ID. And this is in the how that I always forget exactly how, but let's say that I want to have, give me a second, I will do it, and then you will try to emulate what I'm doing. I want to have, I will use the function concatenate, because I want to combine several sources of information. So the first one is going to be the last 4 digits of the social security number. Then I'm going to do a dash. Then I'm going to put the actual 2 digits of the last name. I'm going to do another dash, and then I will do 2 digits of the first name. And you can do any, and basically I'm just showing how to put all the things that we have actually covered together. So basically I have my ID, where you can see some of the information from the actual, so you can actually identify a person, an individual, making sure, just say I was giving a class, and sometimes we have, like if you just put the first name and then the initial, sometimes you have actually individuals that have the same name and also if initial letter or of their last name. So in this case, you can actually start playing on how to combine that information. So I would like to basically, before we actually start moving to the next exercise that we'll do other functions, I just want to see if you have questions, or if we're doing okay, you can actually put maybe okay, that way I can continue. If you are behind, let me know before we actually move to the next, using the same file, okay? Okay, that works if you do the what is the name of this thing? Okay. If you want to type, if you're doing okay, I saw some people already are showing, but if others, before I continue, basically we are just practicing right now. Yeah, good. That helps me. If we're practicing that way, I also know that you are alive. We're practicing how to do, right now we did right, left, right, and then also how to concatenate. Basically, it's just some ways to actually start manipulating some data. Let me just continue now. And let's continue with what is called the find initial. So actually this is, if you want to actually, I forgot to delete the state. If you could actually delete this state, and this is just for practice, but I just want to show you that it gets a little more complicated. So delete the state. So basically, imagine that you got some information. In this case, I think this is going to be the most common one, where you got information, and there was actually a question at the beginning, like how do you separate? How do you separate? In many cases, we get the first name and last name, or we get the city in this case and the state together with a comma. And that's really not, we don't want that. We want to separate them. So how do you, and I will ask, let's see if someone in the group, so how do you actually, for example, if you get the Richmond, Virginia, how do I get only the state? So how can I do it? And someone actually just want to share with me. How do you think you can do it?
You can separate by the, sorry.
Mm-hmm.
Use a right and maybe just the 2 characters.
Yeah, let's do it. Perfect. So let's do right. You can always type if you feel okay, and then, or you can call in the dialog box and it's going to help us. And then I will populate. So that's pretty easy. We just saw it. Now, this is the challenging one. So now how do I actually extract my city? And if you already know, well, I know there's some people that have a lot of experience, but let's see how, and really start thinking, because this is really, I think Excel allows to a lot of creativity. So sometimes we need to find ways to do what we want. So let's see what do you think? We have seen some, but there's a problem. That's why I'm asking. Who would like to try? Or at least explain how do you think you can actually extract the city?
Well, right and last 2.
Well, that will give us, right, last 2 will give us the state.
Oh, I'm sorry, you want the city.
The city.
Okay. What I usually do, I just add a column and do column to text, and just keep whatever is before the comma.
Okay, and we'll do actually our next exercise. We'll do the text to column, and that's a powerful function, but it doesn't do the automatization. You actually you will see that this is what we're trying to do, and you are right what you are doing. You need to do it every time. So what I want is functions that will always actually be very consistent. So let me actually start. So if I want to use left, let's see what is going to happen if I do, because if I do left, I could do left. Remember, we were actually doing our function left, because that my extraction, I want to extract some characters from the left. But what is the problem? What is the problem? So I will actually do the text here. And then what is my problem there?
Each city has more than the amount of numbers that you want.
Yeah. So really, there's no consistency, obviously, and that's natural. It's not really a problem. It's actually natural of the data. It's not that you know, like every city needs to have 2 characters or 3 or 4. It's actually natural. Some cities are longer. So actually, this is the only problem is that we don't know how many characters do we need to actually tell Excel to do the extraction. But what we could do is actually use another formula that is actually going to help us. It's very similar to the text to columns, but it's a formula, it's a function. It's something that we can always do. So it's actually easier. And the function that I want to show you is actually one that is called find. Basically, as the word says, it's going to find something. So let me type. Also, if you want to type find, I will wait a little bit here to give you some time. Let me just click OK. And now Excel is asking me, okay, so what do you want to find? And in this case, it could be any text. Could be, you know, could be a letter, could be, but in this case, what do I want to find? I want to find a comma. And then, because I know that the only thing that is consistent, and again, that's a word that we need to start, when we're talking about that data, we want consistency is very important, because that is actually the only way we can start the automatization process is actually consistency. So we see from this data that we have always a city. We don't know how many actually characters, a comma, space, there's always a space, and then we have 2 characters for the state. So we see that that is consistent. So I want to find a comma, and then I want also to do the extraction in my column A2, basically when I have both. And then I will click OK. I don't need to actually, this is optional start number. We don't need to, if you have a longer one, you can actually mention specifically from what number of characters do you want to start finding things. But let's actually click OK. And right now, Excel is telling me that the comma is in the actual 9 character. So now I know actually the information that was missing. So let me actually now use my left function again. So this is my text. My text is again the initial one, my source. And now I have my number of characters. So where is my number of characters? Actually here, find is actually telling me the number of characters. And I'm gonna click OK. But if you see, what is wrong there?
The comma is included.
Yeah, so actually the comma is included, and that is actually because I did my find. So the comma is actually my 9 characters. So what there's actually many ways I could do here -1, or also here, I could also do, C2 is actually giving me the 9 -1. And then basically now I have only my city. The difference between this and text to column is that this is a function. This is a function that we can always we can copy and paste, and it will be always the same. And I also could do here, let's say that I want to avoid having one extra. I also could do here I'm copying and pasting. I also could do here my find. So basically what I have now is actually 2 functions here that are working together. You don't need to do this, I'm just showing you. But in this case, I don't need this one because I have 2 functions together that are working together. One function is telling me where's the comma, and the next function is actually doing distraction based on that information. And we could do this for many different things. So let me just continue now. Another way we could do this, let me just move my screen here, is actually doing what is called the text to column. Actually, there was also some comments about it. And for this one, try to follow me. The first thing that I want to do is basically I need to ask you to copy and paste these numbers, because it's going to delete. Actually, text to columns, one of the problems is going to delete the original information. So let me just copy and paste. And then I will expand here. So now I have two different columns. And before I do it, I just want to show you here, what I like from this way we are doing things is that I am not really modifying my original information. It's something that if we want to avoid errors later down the road, the less we modify our original information, the safer we are. So if you see, for example, the city is it's basically, I'm just combining, or in this case, extracting information, but the original source of information is there. I'm not really touching, I'm not actually modifying that information. And that's the way we should try to do it. I know sometimes it's difficult, but we need to find, or we need to try to find ways of actually keeping our information safe. We don't want to, every time we actually modify our original information, we are actually taking a risk. So we want to avoid that. Anyway, let me just continue. So now at this point, I hope you already did you copy. Basically, I just copy and paste it to my text to column function. And what I want to do is I want to do an extraction. I know, for example, and I'm sure if you are in an organization, you see a lot of these horrendous account numbers. This is from accounting, from the ledger, I think. But for our supervisor, the individual only wants only the project number. So I see that the project number is there. So how do I extract this? We have done left, right. We have done actually, but if I do left, it doesn't work. If I do right, it doesn't work. But there's actually this function called text to column. And actually I think it's very useful. If you actually go to your tab, it says data. And I'm just going to give you some time to locate the function. And this is text to columns. So let me just select the area that I want to actually do this conversion. I could also select the actual column, but in this case, I want to select only the data. And then I will call the text to columns tool. And Excel is actually giving me several ways. When you are actually, for example, looking, the delimited one is looking for commas or tabs. Actually, when we did the separation of the city, you could also use this one, the delimited one, where you're looking for that specific comma. I think it's more powerful when you're actually doing the combination of functions, because you don't need to do all these steps. Basically, it will always actually give you the same extraction. In this case, you need to actually do it. So it takes some time. So maybe if they change a little bit, it's going to be a little bit more challenging. But anyway, I just want to also show you, you could also do a fixed width. Because this is not that common, but I think it's very useful also. So let's actually select fixed width and then do next. And here, what Excel is asking me is Excel wants that I show where do I want to basically do my columns. I have the opportunity, if you want to say that, I could actually create a line that is going to cut my data and create several columns based on how many times I cut. So I'm just going to actually, because I want to extract, remember, I want to extract this information here. So I will actually put one here, and I'm just actually clicking, and then I'm going to do another cut here. Basically, I'm just doing some cuts. So at this point, my data, I'm going to do our error in a minute, my data has 3 different columns. I could also create one by error. For example, I did this error on practice because it's actually the first time I start doing this. It's like, how do you delete this one? So basically, you just pick up you just try to actually click and then drag outside. So practice, before I move, I just want to make sure that we are not having problems. So try to actually find if you are able to actually arrive to that point where we are actually clicking. I'm trying to separate. So this is the information that I want to extract. This is the information I want to extract. If for this specific exercise, I don't need the rest. So let's see if you want to, just a couple say yes, are you okay? How are we doing? Okay, should I continue? Okay,
Yes.
okay. So let's continue. I will do my next. So the next step is actually Excel is asking me, okay, so we are ready to go. We have 3 different columns, and this is actually going to be important in a minute. So we have the option basically of creating 3 different columns, and Excel is asking me, do you need the first column? It's like, no. Well, I'm going to actually say, no, I really don't need one. I don't need this one, so just skip. The second one is actually asking me, okay, do you need the second column? And I could even tell Excel, well, this is general, is text, is date. That way Excel is already preparing my data. It's better. I'm just going to keep it like that, general. And then the third one, I don't need it, so I will do skip. And then I will do finish. So right now I have my project numbers. And so one of the difference between doing text with columns than really doing what we just did here before is the problem of actually losing your original information. So in this case, when I did my text with columns, basically all the original information actually is gone. But there's other problems. These are more difficult, but it is important because you are going to see later when we're trying to combine information, one of the problems is that sometimes we're actually using numbers that are really text. And that becomes an issue. For example, right now, my numbers are to the left or to the right. They are to the right. So that means that those are, in a way, those are numbers. And this is actually my account number is, well, even it says account number, it's actually a text. It's basically an identifier. If you think about also your social security number, even says number, it's actually an identifier. It's identifying me. We cannot combine, we cannot add social security numbers like if we're adding numbers. We can count them, how many social security numbers do we have as a group? Okay, we have 20, but we cannot add them. So let's actually see what happens if, in a way I am seeing here some numbers, these are project numbers. If I try to add them, let's see what is going to happen. You don't need to do this, but you want to try it, that's fine. And actually right now, and this is why sometimes it gets tricky. Excel is actually adding those numbers. And those are project numbers. So we shouldn't be able to add them. And that's one of the disadvantages that I have with when I'm doing this text to column. Sometimes it acts very strange. So let me actually first, let me just try and change this. If I want to change, because I don't want to actually have numbers. I want to have text. Basically, they should be project numbers, but text, basically a text. So I will actually change it here to text here in the bottom. And again, different versions or maybe the setup that you have on Excel is going to be different. So maybe you will have some difficulty finding, but I just want to change the format. I could also do it. And right now, actually, they went to the left. But let me just try to add them again. And I'm able to add them. So even though they went to the left, that in Excel, if you see a number that goes to the left, that means that it's a text. So right now, Excel is actually, it's controlling and it's telling me that that is text. If I try to see it here, it's text. You see here is general, here is text. Inside Excel, it thinks it's a number. And that is sometimes some problems. So there's another function, and this right now it doesn't make a lot of sense, but if you are ever actually having problems manipulating some data, this is a function that you will always actually like to do. I want to validate if this is real text or not. What is really the, inside Excel, what Excel thinks. And sometimes when you're trying to do, we'll do lookups in a minute, well, later today, the lookup function where you're trying to match some information. When we're trying to match and we have text and we have numbers, it looks the same, but actually internally Excel doesn't know what it is. Sometimes that is the real problem. So let's use this function called isText. So I'm just going to call my function. This is actually a function that is very strange because it doesn't actually show. So you need to go to, I think it's informational, and then type is, you need to even find it, I think. I don't think that is easy to find. But these are different ways you can actually validate information. And I'm going to look for this one that is called isText. It's a very simple one. And it's going to answer me if that is text true or false. That's the only thing it's going to do. So I'm going to wait a little bit here and see how are we doing. Again, if you have questions, if you're getting behind, you can always type, you can send me a message, a direct message, or you can always ask. There's not everyone needs to know everything from Excel, and I'm not that person for sure. But anyway, so let's continue. I just want to validate if this is text or not. So I will actually now, I will point or signal the cell that I need to do and click OK. So now for Excel, it's telling me that this, even though this cell that we also have put this format of text, it is not text. But originally, it was text, because this is impossible to be a number. And that is one of the problems sometimes we find when we do the text to columns. And this is, but there's another way of doing it. It's a little bit, so if I want to actually do an extraction from here, we have done left, we have done right, but also I could do mid. So how is actually, I have my note sheets here, 16 and 19, because I don't want to count. But I could also do mid. So actually now let's call the mid function. So I'm going to do an extraction from the middle, basically. And this is what the options that I have. First, I need to show the actual text that I want to do the extraction from. Then Excel is asking me, okay, so you want to do an extraction from the middle. In what specific point on the middle do you want to start the extraction? And I know that's why I was looking here, because I know it's actually from the 16 character. And basically you can count the characters, and the period is going to be there at the 16. And how many characters do I want to extract? I want to extract 9. And this is just because I know that each project has 9 characters. And then I'm going to click OK. And if you actually see, Excel automatically actually did the format to text, because Excel knows that this is text, is automatically also assuming that that is text also. So I will actually populate. Now I have my project numbers similar. And now let's actually do the validation. And let's see if we are able to actually get something here. So let's do the isText function again. And let's see what happens. And if you see, they are very, very similar. They look very similar, very, very similar. But one internally for Excel is a number, and one internally for Excel is basically an identifier. So if I want to add this, Excel is not even, like normally, if I want to add something here, Excel automatically suggesting me, okay, we can add these numbers. But those are not numbers. If I want to actually do the same here, doesn't even suggest, because Excel knows that that is not right. So it's actually, even if I try to do it, there's zero. There's no actually addition. It's not adding this, because Excel knows that even though they look like a number, they are not a number. Anyway, this is just, I think it's important, because sometimes we are actually having problems with our formulas, and this could be one of the reasons. Okay, so let's continue. And before we do our last exercise for this round, I just want to make sure that we're going in the right direction. So how are we doing? there's actually, there was a question if we can actually do a formula to count the numbers of characters. Yes, it's actually similar. You could do something like define function, and it will help you actually to count the number of characters. You can even combine. Remember, we did some combining here. So you could actually find, so you can actually, there's Excel needs to, there needs to be some, something that is occurring always, is something that is going to help identify something Excel, but you can be a comma, it could be a space. So you can actually use this to find, you can actually do 2 different finds, but anyway, that gets too complicated. But yes, you should actually, you should. And we really, what we want is to eliminate the possible error that we could be putting in the actual data. And one of the, and you are going to see it right now, sometimes when we're actually working with Excel and we're trying to use a lot of information, we start making mistakes that we don't even notice. So the less we actually modify the data, the safer we are. So if you want just a couple, if you're gonna say, are we okay? How are we doing before this is actually, or let's say actually, maybe I will ask some of you if, and I don't know, many people call this very differently, but do you know what is anchoring a cell? Who knows what is anchoring? And why do we need to anchor? Or I don't know, it sounds very strange. What is anchoring? You can type or you can actually say it. Let's I don't know. What do you think? What is anchoring? If someone knows, I'm sure someone knows. So who knows what is anchoring? Anchoring a cell? No? Well, let me just show you. So do we have,
so it doesn't scroll.
I'm sorry?
It's so that the one cell doesn't move around, right?
Yeah, Karen. And that is actually important. You are going to see, we're going to see in a minute, that if we are not aware of how important anchoring is, we could be moving around our tables and doing multiplication. Excel is going to do the multiplications. It doesn't matter. But it could be just changing and doing different things that are really not what we want. So we need to actually do anchoring. So, or, you know, there's many other ways, and that's where you can actually help me. If you know how to call this in other ways, let me know, because I continue to learn. I just like anchoring because it's kind of like more visual, but it could be other things. Other ways, you could even type. Yeah, it's F4 is what we are going to be using. And it's very, very important that we are very familiar. And by the end of the day, that's something that you will learn for sure. So let's say, for example, we have these computations that we need to do. We have some individuals here. And this is just basically to show, maybe this is not the most important information, but these are the sales by month. So, well, the first thing, let's calculate the total sales. I could do sum and then basically add them. Okay, so that's very simple. And then I will populate. Okay, so now let's actually do the tax. So we know these are the sales, and I just want to calculate the taxes for those sales. There's several ways, but I want to practice something. So I have a table here where I have my sales tax. So what I want to do is basically multiply my sales times the tax, and then just do the calculation here. So how do I do it? Basically, I will do equal my sales times, and then I will go to my other table, and I will click. So, and sadly, this doesn't show well because I can't really make this bigger. But when I click, right now I have J2. If I do F4, I'm going to have the currency number. It's going to appear actually 2 times. One, the first one is for J, basically it's anchoring my J. So now Excel is not going to move on J, and also is not going to move on the rows. It's going to stay on row number 2. So I'm anchoring actually my rows and my columns. So this is the first type of anchoring. If I press F4 again, now I have only one symbol. So that means that it's going to only anchor the row. Then I click again. Now it's only anchoring my columns, and I click again, and basically there's no anchoring. So in every time actually you're in any cell that you are actually using to signal the source, you can always do the anchoring, the F4. So in this case, because this is not going to change, it's always going to be the same sales tax, I'm just going to do the F4. And then I'm going to click OK. But let me show you what happens. So this is the correct one. Let me show you what happens if I don't do it. Let me see. And this is, so I'm going to do the sales tax times. And I'm just going to actually click on my sales tax number or percentage. So if you see my initial one works, but when I try to actually populate, Excel is actually moving one row down from the third to the fourth. And what Excel is doing in this case, and let's do F2 to see what Excel is doing, is multiplying now F4 times J. It should be J3. It doesn't show here, but it's J3. Let me just do F. Let's make this bigger for you. So it's doing F4 times J3. So this is, it's actually doing the multiplication from the cells times this cell that is empty. So that's why we're actually getting the zeros. But if I come here, I'm just going to do this again. I do my multiplication equal sales tax times, and then I come here. As soon as I press right now, there's no currency, basically there's no anchoring. I will do F4 one time. Basically I'm anchoring. I don't want any movement. It's going to always be the same cell. And then I do my concatenation. What is important is that this is the right way, because let's say that we go, the sale tax goes down, it will impact and everything is going to change. So this is one way of using anchoring. But now let's actually do the same calculation. And this is going to be a little bit more difficult now. Trying to do basically using the commission. This is the commission. Basically, here we were using the same percentage for all the individuals. Now I have a specific percentage for each individual. So what do you think is, do we want to actually, what do we want to anchor? Do we want to anchor the rows or do we want to anchor the columns? Let's see, we have one volunteer. We want Excel to move in this direction or in this direction when I'm actually getting the information from here.
You would anchor the column.
Yeah, so I don't want actually Excel to move to other columns. I want only Excel to look in these columns. So I want to anchor actually my columns. So let's actually try it. So I will make some mistakes, that way it's just easier to see. So let me actually do my first multiplication and I will do an error here. So I'm just going to do, and this is something, sometimes we do this and we don't even know that we are doing it. So I will do January times the commission of the individual times, and I go here, and this is the commission. And I click OK. So, okay, so I have my information there. It looks fine. And then if I want to populate, actually I always forget, I need to copy and paste. There's something that is not allowing me, but if I copy paste, it works. And then when I try to actually move in the other direction, it doesn't work. But let's see what information are we actually doing. Let me just do F2. So I'm multiplying C 8, and that is fine, times this 7. And so this 7 is here. So in this case, I'm actually doing the multiplication right because it's my first column. But when I try to actually use the same, I want to actually populate in the other direction, look what is happening. I'm multiplying February, that is fine, because actually I'm asking Excel to move 1 to the right. And then Excel is actually now looking for the information in which column? In column E. So if I go here, my column E is empty. So let's actually now start using some anchoring here. I'm going to delete everything. And here we go. So I will do January, and then times, and then my anchoring here. As soon as I click, this is the easiest way. I just do F4. So let's see what happens, for example, if I just, right now I'm anchoring rows and columns, okay? It works. I'm going to copy and paste. And in this case, I was actually able to do all my computations, but there's an error there. There's an error. And let's see, I will give you maybe, let's see if someone actually was able to capture my error. Let me just do, it has to do with the anchoring. What is happening is that actually I am multiplying all the sales of all the individuals. I'm actually doing the right multiplication, but I'm always actually, you see, I'm always doing D2. I'm always actually using the commission of Carter, always. Because the type of anchoring that I'm doing always is D2, always. So anchoring actually becomes important. Very, very important. How do we define? And this is actually something that I have seen in many occasions that we see a table, it looks fine. It actually is doing the multiplications, but it's not really getting the right. So this is actually C7, that looks fine. But, oops. It's really not capturing the right one. Because in this case, it's actually only using this commission. It is not using the rest of the commissions. So let's actually do one more time. And after this, we'll actually have, this is the last exercise of this round. We'll have a little break. So I will actually do I will do my C3 times, and then I will go again to my commission. And right now I will do my F4. In this case, in the first F4, I'm anchoring both columns and rows. I will do my second one. In this case, I'm actually anchoring rows. And then I will do my third one where I'm anchoring only my columns. So I will do enter. And then I need to copy and paste. I just forgot. And here, when I start moving, I'm able to populate now. Let's test. I hope this is right. So let's test. So I am doing this 7. This is fine for February. And then I'm getting the commission from this 6. Let's see. D6. And that is fine for Robert. And let's actually check one more. I'm checking for Ryan in March. I will do my F2. So Ryan in March. And then the commission that I'm actually doing is on D10. D10. So just, it's actually very important to actually use anchoring. So what we are actually, how do we use the anchoring will actually affect how we use tables. And sometimes we get a lot of reports, and I think it's always smart to actually just verify, because not everyone actually knows how to do the anchoring. And anchoring, so sometimes we get confused. Even me, that I have done this many times. Sometimes I get confused. Do I want to anchor my rows? Do I want to anchor my columns? Do I want to? Well, I think that really the most difficult one. Not without anchoring is very easy, or anchoring one specific cell, that is very easy. When we're actually trying to move around is where it gets a little complicated. So let's actually take 10-minute break. Right now it's 9:54 according to my computer. So let's actually start again at 10:05. And I will take a little break. I will be here in 5 minutes. If you have specific questions, if you're getting behind in something, let me know, because we're going to start actually doing exercises that are going to be a little bit, it's going to start using some of the things that we actually have covered. Thank you. Let's take 10 minutes and I'll be here in 5 minutes. Thank you. we'll wait like 5 more minutes, but if someone has a specific question, more than happy. You know, I will just drink my coffee, and I like coffee. But if someone has a question, let me know. Also, you can actually chat. Sometimes I forget to look at the chat, but I'm not trying to do that. I prefer actually also just regular questions. Basically, voice is always better. But I understand that we are a lot, so that is fine. And if you are already here, but we'll give some time, we'll continue with a conditional formatting, but I will show you a little bit of filtering, but I don't want to dedicate a lot of time. I want to actually move faster. So we'll do, you can actually open the one that says conditional formatting.
Mr. Millet,
Yes.
hi, good morning. This is a question outside of we're covering right now.
Mhm.
I usually get a report that has a column with a bunch of, I guess, text, but it's numbers, but in text format. Okay. But out of those sets of numbers, I only need to select, I guess, the number that is related to grants, which starts with a 5. Is there a way to have a specific function or formula that identifies only that number?
Maybe with that, well, I don't know exactly. You want to just have, you want Excel to just signal that visually, or do you want
Yes,
to
I
start
want to, if,
just to
when I
see?
get this, when I download this report, it has several numbers. They're cost centers and projects, right?
Mhm.
But my interest is only to select and visually keep the numbers related to a project number, which starts with a 5. That's an easy identifier.
Yeah, obviously it's difficult without seeing the actual data, but I will try maybe doing a different column, like just adding one column
Uh-huh.
and trying to do as an extraction, and then using the word find again.
Find. Okay,
Instead
with
of doing
find.
the you can actually find that. Also, there's one called match rule. I don't know if we'll have time to actually do it at the end. You can do match also. But
Okay,
find, I think, is very easy.
find and
Uh,
match. Okay.
and I will actually put my email at the end.
Uh-huh.
And I don't know if it was actually circulated on the actual invitation. It's something very specific. I don't mind. You can say, sometimes I forget, but if you want to send me, you don't need to send me the actual entire data set or whatever. I don't want to see information that I really don't want to see.
Yes,
I think
it's not too, I mean, it's not too sensitive. It's just account numbers that we use, and some of them are projects,
yeah,
and I need to identify those.
yeah. If you want, because every time I actually do like for a real exercise, it helps me. Actually, this is something. The one I just showed you about accounting was actually by a department of accounting that wanted to do something like that. They're like, oh, what is option? What options? Well, that's how I start learning. So this is a different thing, and
Okay.
I always like to learn. I don't know how fast I do it. I sometimes it take 1 or 2 days or 3. Well, it's not really difficult. It's just I just forget sometimes. But I think it's always actually a learning.
You want to practice? I can send you the report every day. I'm
Oh,
just
no.
kidding.
Well, actually, we're going to start in a minute, but when I began working with Excel, like maybe like 25 years ago, at 20, I don't know, 20 or maybe 20. I don't know if it's Excel. Sometimes it's like, wow, Excel is so old. But yes, I actually work for the city of Minneapolis and in Minnesota, and we used to do a lot of extractions of data from the actual city. And the amount of information actually was incredible. But I ended up using learning Access because I always needed to do every week the same report. So I learned Access, and the automatization is more robust in Access or in other software. There's other software that's more robust. I like Excel because it's very flexible. We can do a lot of things, but also at the same time, it's very flexible, but also that flexibility, nothing is perfect in life. It also carries a lot of errors. So
True.
that has actually, you have more control on the way you are manipulating data. But to this point, I say Excel is a great tool to experience and to learn how the data is, to start actually learning how to manipulate the data. But eventually you want to have more control and less work. Also, there's some macros. So we're not going to cover macros in Excel. You can do a lot of the interesting things. Actually, Excel is very powerful now. So anyway, you want to send me I will try to help you with the identifier.
I'll show you the data set.
Don't send me
No. Just a sample of a line, just one line.
Yeah, it's just like how I, maybe a couple, and then so if we can actually see what could be some way we can actually standardize the procedure. It's always actually better, because what you want is just to have one cell that could actually help you basically separate some information.
Correct. Yes.
And then anyway, that's easy.
Okay.
From there. Thank you. Okay, I think that, I don't know if you are back or not, but anyway, I think that it's time to start again. So I want to actually really concentrate more on conditional formatting, but I just want to show you, and I'm assuming that most of you know how to do filters. So I'm just going to show you a little bit some of the things that you can do, but you don't need to do these things. It's just basically it's just really a friendly reminder, I guess. And then we'll go to conditional formatting. So imagine you have actually some information, it arrives. One of the things, and maybe you are, this is not everyone knows, you could actually tell Excel that this is actually a table. So I could actually tell Excel, well, all these cells are part of a table, and that becomes actually important later. So I could actually format as a table. I could also, in this case, Excel is asking me, okay, so is that a table? Yes, and also it has header. That way, everything that I do, Excel will recognize that this is a table, and even it could even find some duplications. For example, I did this on purpose, but if you see this area here, and there's some duplication here. Basically, by error, I added this. So I could also ask Excel, for example, to look for duplications here. I could actually ask, Excel already knows that I'm talking about a table. I could ask remove duplicates. And then I could actually also ask, okay, I want only the duplicates of names, or in this case, I want the entire row needs to be exactly the same. And then I click OK. And it's telling me, Excel, that, for example, it found 3 duplicates. But it needs to be, the duplication needs to be in this case, because I actually told Excel, in all the columns. So basically, there's 3 duplicates. And then I click OK. And Excel actually already deleted the ones in the bottom. So it's something kind of simple. And let me show you, I'm sure you have done this before, where you can actually do some filtering here. You can obviously filter just by a specific individual, for example. Then I could also add another filter. Well, in this case, I don't have by region. I could also maybe do it for a month. I could say, well, I just want to see January and March. January, what is January? I'm just going to remove actually all my filters here. Clear, I'm going to clear my filter. Clear my filter also. I could even be more specific and say, okay, well, I want to see all my, just one region here, north. And then depending on the type of information Excel recognizes, for example, Excel knows that this is text. This is text also. So that's why Excel is actually offering me some type of filters. So I could actually say it doesn't contain, and then I could actually type, for example, Davis. So right now Excel is showing me where it doesn't have Davis. But what is important is Excel is already telling me, okay, these are the options that you have based on the type of information. So here, when I'm actually looking at numbers, Excel is actually, let me actually stop here. Are you seeing my screen? I just want to verify. It's like, well, maybe I'm not. If someone can tell, are you listening to me and are you seeing my screen?
We can see your screen.
Yes? I couldn't hear you well.
We can see your screen.
Okay. Oh, but it says it's still in the concatenate screen. It's actually, I'm talking about filters now. Let me just actually, maybe it's the other one.
You were on the cells. We can see you moving.
Okay. Yeah, but maybe I was actually sharing the other one. Let me just share this again. That way, and I apologize for that. So now let's see, you are able to see my filtering. So basically, this is a table. You don't need to actually do this. Let's actually, basically just friendly reminder, but what are we doing? And eventually we'll use this for pivot table. So it's something that you will use later. So what is interesting or important is that Excel is going to show me different types of menus or options depending on the type of information that I have. So if I want to, for example, I want to have text that is equal to Davis, for example, I could also type, Davis, and it's going to actually, oops. It's going to filter, it should filter. I could contain Davis. Do I have Davis? Yeah. So it's showing me Davis. I could also do, well, I could do several others. Contains or does not begin. There's other options. Not equal to Davis. So in this case, it's actually the inverse. Actually has Davis there. But so these are several ways. And then you can actually, for example, also, I'm going to clear the filter. When you are talking about numbers, when actually Excel recognizes that in numbers, you have other options with numbers. So I could say it is less than, and I could say less than maybe 700. And shows me only the ones that are less than 700. So this is, and you can actually do all this filtering here. But what is important, I think this is something I didn't show at the, because if you were not looking at my graph, you can, well, I will show you later. You can actually tell Excel that this is a table. So basically what I did at the beginning, I selected all my information. And then I just told Excel that that was a table. It's formatted as a table. And it's a very useful actually tool because Excel, as soon as it recognizes that it's a table, it will actually manipulate the information, not as several cells or rows, but as an entire table. And it's going to be very beneficial later. I would like to stop here And I will ask you to actually open the conditional formatting table worksheet. We'll actually do some formatting. I think it's actually very, it's a good tool, and I will actually share in a minute. So let's open the one that says conditional formatting. And I will start sharing my screen. Can you see my, I'm going to actually change the color. Can you see the one I changed the color? Just one person, if you can actually tell me.
Yes.
Okay. So basically, I'm just going to go. So when you're actually conditional formatting, it's actually something that is pretty simple, but I think it's a very cool tool. And normally when we are creating reports, we are actually sometimes working with others or actually create a report for others. We want to save time. So we want to highlight, we want to make sure that they go to the same location or to the areas that we want to focus. So one way of doing it is actually using this conditional formatting. So let's say, for example, this is a regular table. Let me actually signal, I'm going to show this. I just did this before. I want to signal, I want to show Excel that this is actually, this is not just a combination of cells, but it's actually an actual table. And that's going to help Excel because now it will help us actually because it knows that it's a table. So I will actually select the area that I want, and then I will do format as table, and I could even select the color that I want. So, and this is actually, this is what is really important. Excel is asking me, okay, so what is your table? Basically, it's what is called an array. It's a vector. So it goes from here to, it starts and ends. So these points are really important for Excel. So Excel is actually using this vector and then, or array of information. And then it's also asking me, do you have headers? Okay, so I know I have, and I will click OK. So right now Excel is actually already converting or manipulating this as a table. This is actually important. And now let's actually do some formatting. So let's say that I want to show where do I have Bob? Or let's actually start with the easiest one. Let's actually start, I want to see right away, but this is, where do I have prices that are above $100? So let's actually start here. We'll pull the conditional formatting. And then I could do, for example, let's actually, the easiest one is actually, Excel already has some that have been created for us. And you could actually show the top 10 items. And then I will actually click OK. Actually, first I need to select the area that I want. Sorry. These are all the areas, all the numbers that I want to Excel to actually compare. And then I will actually do my top 10 top items. And right now Excel is actually showing me the 10. I could also do less items. Let's do 5. So basically Excel right now is highlighting the items that has the biggest number in this case. So these are the 10 top. So I will actually come here. I will clear my rules. So let's say I want, for example, I only want to highlight 40, the number 40. I could do a new rule. Well, let's do one more before we actually start doing that. So I could come here and then I could also do average, for example. I could also do the bottom 10 items. So this is actually the lower items. I could do 5, for example. I could even change, for example, the type of color. in this case, is actually just highlighting, not highlighting, but really changing the font. So these are several ways we can do this. So this is just some ways we can do this. Let me just clear again. And let's start doing some actual formulas. So I want to have actually the selection process. I want to select Bob. I want to select the name Bob from all these, and I always get this wrong. Let's see. So the first thing is I want to select the area. This is my select, all the cells that I want to, in a way, to impact. Or maybe it's better just to actually have it here, just so you can actually see. So if you don't do this, just actually follow me. So I want to compare, I want to check if this is Bob, this is going to be actually yellow. This is my target formatting cell. So I will create a new rule. And here is actually, I could do that format only cells that contain, and then equal to, cell value equal to, and then I could put, for example, Bob. And then I will do actually, for example, I could change the color to yellow. Let me, I did it wrong. Cells that format the cells that contain equal to Bob, and then yellow. So basically, in this case, well, at the beginning it doesn't make sense. It's not so relevant. But let's actually see what we just did. So we can actually come here and manage our rules. And this is where it actually becomes more interesting. So I'm actually asking Excel to look for the name Bob and then highlight. But here's where I could actually start changing. Right now, I am only looking at this specific cell, but also I could actually change it and I could apply it to the rest, for example. Let's see what happens. So right now, Excel is also applying the format to other actually cells. So this could actually help us if we are actually looking for a specific account or we're actually looking for a specific quantity, we could also do that. So let me actually delete this. There's other ways we can actually do the same. So let me, if, for example, I could also do, I could select my entire column and then conditional formatting. I could do a new rule. I want to format the cells that contain. I will do equal to, and I will do Bob. Let's see. And let's do, and this is another way we can actually help us. So I'm just going to do it again, practice. If you want to practice, at least let's practice the initial one where we can actually just equal to a name. We'll do one more in a minute, but I just want to make sure that you get a little familiar. There's a lot of different things when you talk about conditional formatting. You can do a lot of ways, and what is needed is actually all these. Basically, you can actually maybe later use for the same rules for other types of worksheets. So let's actually, I will go step by step, but try it. I think that is the best way if you can actually try it. So let me just, first I need to select basically the area that I want to impact. So this is the area that I want to impact. And then I will do my new rule. Actually, all these rules are similar to these rules. I just want that you learn how to use new rule and how to manage rule, how to clear rules. But all these are basically the same type of rules. It's just they are already prepared for you. But I think that it's always important that we actually learn these are more robust in a way. So I will actually, I already selected my area that I want to impact. Then I want to actually format only the cells that contain the cell value. I will use the between in a minute, equal to, and in this case, let's actually call John. John. And then I will put the color that I want. So I will use in this case, well, no, let's use green. And you can actually change the color of the font. So you can actually do a lot of different things. Well, let's actually change. So we have green. Oh, it's okay. And I was trying to get the color of the font. Doesn't allow me. Okay, so let's click OK. And then, so these are where we have a John. Now let's actually try to see, for example, I want to challenge you to actually locate or to highlight the numbers between 10 and 6. 10 and 6. So we initially highlight the area that we want, then we do conditional formatting, new rule, and let's do it here. I will give you maybe a couple of 1 minute. From there, you can actually try it and see. So from 10 to 6. So we want to highlight from 10 to 6. Now let's change. Actually, imagine that I am your supervisor and I say, well, I really don't like green. So let's actually change. Let's actually change the color to blue. So we can always double click and we can change. We can actually change the color. So now actually it's blue. And let's say I don't want red. I want actually now, I want to change it to light orange. That's okay. You can always change it. And sometimes we could even have a overlapping conditional formatting. If you think about, for example, I could have John, and at the same time could also be like, if we have several rules, you can actually have several rules here, and one could be overlapping to the other. So you can always move. You can actually move your formatting or your conditional formatting, so it will actually stack up. It will actually basically start doing one layer and the other layer, the other layer, and the other layer. So this is how it applies. So like if you have several that will actually coincide in the same cell, it will actually apply them to like one on top of each other. So we'll keep the last one. And if you see, for example, show formatting rules for this table. That's why it's so important, and it's not required, but I think it's always very helpful to have it as a table, because now I see all the formatting function that I have for this specific table. I don't know if we have some questions or comments, or maybe some ideas how we can maybe use this. I don't know. There's actually many ways you can actually do this type of. Let me just erase everything. We'll clear all my rules. So this is a little bit more difficult This is the last one I'm going to do here. So let's say that I want to actually, I want to mark now, but not only just the name of Bob, but I want to actually signal the entire row for Bob. And in this case, format values where this format is true. So the first is the impact. I already have the impact is the entire table. And then I'm going to create my formula. So I'm going to say this cell. If you see, actually, I don't know if you can actually see it from my screen, but automatically, actually, Excel is already actually giving me concatenate option. I'm going to do equal to Bob. Last time we did it and it was just easier. Right now I'm actually doing it with typing everything in a way. These are just pre-done formulas, but this is one that I need to do. And then I'm going to actually put yellow as a highlighting. And then I will click OK. So right now it's actually is showing me all. But let's actually change a little bit how we actually manage the rule. So what I want is that the Excel only looks in this specific row. I'm sorry, in this specific column. So I will actually change this. It gave me the concatenate option automatically. And now it's actually only showing me the rows. I don't know if that was, this is a little bit more difficult to do than the one we just did before. But what is neat is it's going to actually, imagine you have several columns. It will actually show you how, which ones are the ones that have actually the actual condition that you want. So I'm asking for Bob. I could also do, for example, let me just close this. And then I could put name, for example, here. I could do a cell here. And this is basically, I'm just putting a cell. There's no specific things. I just want to show you other ideas. And when I do the manage, I'm sorry, I need to select my actual table. Manage rules. I want to edit my rule. And here I'm asking Excel to look in this, in column number C for Bob. But also I could actually say, well, don't look for Bob. Look for the name that I actually type here. And then I click OK. And then I apply. So right now there's no names. But if I type Mark, now it's showing me where is Mark. And I could always go back, and now I'm going to type Bob. And now I'm going to type Laura. So you know, I'm not really modifying the information. I'm just highlighting some points. And we could always, for example, you have a table. Let's say that you have a table or report that you actually give to your boss. You can always actually, for example, do something like this. Is you can actually say, well, for your supervisor, if the supervisor actually just types in the name, the individual that wants to highlight, well, you can actually ask, and it will actually show a specific, you know, with it's not really modifying the information, it's just highlighting specific condition. There's actually, I think it's pretty neat what actually is one way of actually using this information, actually saving some time for other individuals. You could also, for example, let me actually use one more. I will add one more here. And let's say that we want to show price, price range. So obviously you can do this nicer, but now I'm going to actually select again the information, the area or my impact. Well, in this case, actually, let's do it so we can do an overlay. So I'm going to select the price area, and then I'm going to create a new one. And then I'm going to actually select format cells based on this specific value. They are going to be between, and instead of actually putting the actual number, I'm going to say it's going to be between this number or this cell, whatever number is there, and this cell here. And they are going to go in red. Well, red is too, anyway, let's do red. So if I type, last time I asked you 6, from 6 to 10. Oops, it didn't actually work. Let me see what is wrong.
Would the issue be that there's no price between 6 and 10? The lowest number would be 16.
Oh, that's right. I was actually thinking of quality. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So actually, let's change. Let's say, for example, 80. Yeah. Thank you. I was thinking of quality, and then actually we were doing. And let's say 120. So this is just one way. For example, this is very simple, very simple. This area, basically, what I am doing is just basically, instead of actually typing the actual number, I'm just allowing the user of the report to type their own numbers. And it's very easy. So I can actually, for example, instead of, let's say I'm doing an evaluation. So first I'm doing for Bob, but let's say, well, now I want to do my evaluation to Laura. So I click here, showing me where's Laura. It's just easier. And then let's say that actually the criteria changes, and now it's going to be, let's say, 100, or let's say 60 to 100. Actually, there was no change because let's say 150 now. And if you see, first, in the case of this number, actually this row 12, first is highlighting yellow, and then on top of the yellow is actually put in the red. And that's because the order of my rules. First is yellow, and the second one is actually red. But let's say what happens, actually I can move this, and then I apply. And now it's actually applying the conditional formatting in the other order. There's actually, you can play with this all your, there's so many things you can do. But I think it's a very powerful tool, very simple also. At the beginning it's difficult. I think the most difficult part is really to understand the impact area. The first selection where you are actually doing the selection, the initial selection, are you talking about maybe this is the impact area where I call the impact area. I'm going to impact all this, or maybe the entire table. And then you actually start the conditional formatting. So I will actually maybe give you a couple of minutes to try to actually do a conditional formatting for this, where you find for quantity, where you actually highlight, let's say the number 7. And then we'll actually move to another exercise. I see that there's also, Obed is familiar. So actually, I think it's a very powerful tool. We'll continue with other tools that are very, very valuable. But let's just try it. I think that if you don't have questions, we'll continue. But try to actually establish a conditional formatting for quantity where you maybe could be 7, 8, or could be 7 and 8. Just try it once, and then just type in yes, I did it, or done. just to know that we are on the right direction. Before we move, we'll actually start moving now to validation. Very similar validation. We're actually, in a way, what we want is to really not to modify the data. What is important is actually, I'm not modifying a lot of my information. I'm not actually changing. I'm just showing it in a different way. That's really more a report. And if I made a mistake, if I want to, I can always actually clear my rules. But I'm not actually changing the table. The table is actually, there's no modification of the table. So this is actually very valuable. So I see that some of you are actually already done. So remember, try to actually do at least one conditional formatting. That will give you at least a sense of what you can be doing with this one. Let's wait for a couple of more of you that actually are done. Because we need to actually move to validation. Okay, so I will continue here, but if you want, you can actually start closing this. I will actually close, and we'll need to start another. There's one that says validation, an Excel file that says validation. If you want to open that one, I will start actually sharing that screen in a minute, but also start opening that screen. If someone can just, are you seeing my validation screen? It says, it's actually a different screen. It says equipment. Yes? Yeah, okay.
Yes.
So anyway, I will continue. Let's actually do this exercise. We'll do a little 10-minute break and we'll continue. But imagine actually, we are actually working with tables from different areas. We are actually sometimes modifying information. We are entering information in tables, or maybe some people are actually, we're sometimes asking others to enter information to our tables. So what we want is really to have some validation and making sure that we want to help our users to enter better data. In data sets, that is very important when you have like different databases that have a lot of control. How do we validate information? Sometimes actually wherever you're entering your phone number, or sometimes they ask you, okay, you want to use a parenthesis for zip, for area code, and then this, or you want to do dashes or not. That is validation. They are just trying to make sure that we are actually entering phone numbers, or not, maybe we're not entering our address or our city. That is some type of validation. Actually, they have a stronger validation to help us and also to help them. So we want to do something similar. So this is a very simple exercise, but I want to show you a very interesting function of Excel that has to do with how do we manipulate data. So let's say, imagine, and this is just for a sample. Even if you don't want to do it, that's okay. I will go really fast. I just want to show you how to do validation. So you have a table, and you have also some resources. Think about, maybe this is a list, this inventory of items that you have in your office, and you're in charge of controlling like who is using the projector, or who is using maybe a vehicle. So you have an ID number, that's basically an inventory number, and then the name of the equipment, and then what type of equipment it is. So let's actually start. We could always actually, for example, we could always say, well, I use the camera. Let's say we can actually have this type, and I was checked out in February, let's say 23rd, and then it was returned in August, whatever, and it was great, no? But in this case, actually, there's no, it will be very difficult actually to establish how many times we have used this specific camera, because in a way, Eduardo actually just wrote something different than maybe Javier. So we actually are able to use some validation. We can actually help our user enter the information the right way. So let me actually show you. And this is, we can actually do the validation. It's actually the validation, sadly, is cell by cell, but it works. We can actually copy the validation to other cells. So let me actually do it here. And the validation function is in the data tab. And validation is actually this icon here. Again, depending on how you have your setup, it's going to show differently. But I don't know if you can actually see where is my data validation. It's this little thing here. And I have several options to data validation. That's what I really want to do. So I'm going to do data validation. And each cell, when each cell is born, basically is new, a new cell, it will actually allow any type of information. Could be a text, could be a number, it doesn't really matter. Excel is actually any text, it will allow anything to go into that cell. So the first data validation, I could actually do, okay, so I want only a whole number. Let's say that actually you have some cells that you are counting people. So you don't want to have decimal like one. We serve today 1.5 individuals. That doesn't exist. So you serve 2, 3, 4 individuals. So that could be a whole number. Or you can actually, for example, say, well, I really want in this specific cell, we want a date. And it will not allow actually any other things that are date. So let's actually start with a custom one. You could even do, for example, the text length. Remember, actually, at the beginning, we were actually counting how many characters those they have. You could do, for example, for a social security number, could be only 9 characters or 11 characters. And that will stop basically at that. And it could even send you a message and tell the user, oh, it needs to be 11, or it needs to be, you can actually put a message there, or an error also. So it's actually, it's very powerful, but actually let's do one. So in this case, I'm asking Excel that in that cell, it will do a custom, it will allow only a custom information. And then it's asking me, okay, what is the formula? Well, actually what I want is a list. I'm sorry, I want to start with a list. So I want only to allow a list. So then I will actually ask, okay, so Excel, the next question is, Excel is going to tell me, okay, so what list do you want to allow? So I need to tell Excel the source. So I will actually do source, and here I will go to my resources, and I will select, in this case, I will select all my resources, and I will click enter, and then I will click okay. So what is happening is actually now, and I don't know if you can see it from there, there's actually now I have a drop down here where I could actually select the equipment. I have several laptops. Maybe it would be better to have maybe an identifier, because one of the problems is that I have 3 laptops or 4, and 4 equipment that are very similar, actually the same ones. So maybe I could put the laptop and then the social, maybe an inventory number that way, or maybe the license plate of the vehicle. That way, if I have several trucks that are very similar, I could identify by license plate, for example. But I could select, for example, okay, I want to use actually this, I'm checking out this specific laptop. And then I will actually also could validate, okay, so it was checked out what the specific date. So I could actually also validate, for example, I could also create another validation here. And then I could say, well, it's going to be a date. And I could say it's going to be between, or it's going to be greater than. So you have all these different options. Let's say, for example, that you want to say that is greater than. Let's say that the semester starts, our semester starts and in a specific date. So we could say, well, it's September. So that's the date that normally we start our semester. It needs to be greater than that, the specific date. Oops. Actually. or let's say, I don't know if it's because it needs to be before. So for example, right now I'm asking if I want to actually enter that was checked out in February. Excel is actually telling me that that day doesn't, basically the data validation process didn't actually went through. So if I actually enter now, let's say 8 through 2020, it allows the information to go in. So you can actually do also, I will let you finish the check-in. And let me show you one way also, one other condition that you can actually do, or one other list that I think is very interesting. And this one is actually, I will do another list. So you have all these different options. So I'm going to do another list. And let's say that before I actually went and got from a list, but I think this is also very useful when you want also just to mark some conditions, for example, good. I think it needs to be in parentheses. Good. I don't have my handout with me, but let's try it. Good. And then I will do comma. That I believe that that's okay or okay. And bad, for example. And now I could also, well, actually you don't even need the quotations. Let me actually change them. So basically you just need commas for this. And I will explain you something in a minute. So for example, if I want to actually copy this, I will need to actually, basically, if I do delete, I'm deleting the information, but not the validation. The validation is there. So if I want to have this in other rows, I could always go and copy. And now all my rows actually have the validation also information. What is important is actually now I'm able to actually create even a report directly from here, because there's consistency. It's not that the way I want to type the information, but we have some pre-assigned ways of actually establishing criteria. And so anyway, that's, I think it's very valuable how we can actually do data validation. And it is actually very simple. So if you want to actually, I will give you a couple of minutes to, maybe 1 minute to try to establish maybe, I don't know if you have done the resources, also the condition. I will give you 1 minute, and then we'll take a little break. If you want, let me know how, just a couple of you, if you were okay, maybe an okay sign with this data validation, so I can actually sense if we are ready to move to the next exercise. We're going to take another 10-minute break, the last one. But I just want to see if you send me okay, or we're okay with the validation, because the next one is going to be built on this one. There's some things that we need to make sure that we understand before we actually, now we're moving to lookups. So 10 minutes, I will actually come back at 11. Then we'll have 5 minutes to, if you have questions, and we'll start again at 11:05. Okay, thank you. And if you have questions, in 5 minutes, we can always go over the data validation. We'll start building now, and we'll move it to lookup. The lookup function, in a way, is very similar to data validation. It's just more powerful. Thank you. Or if someone has a question about validation, if not, we'll wait. We'll start again at 11:05, or other questions of things that we have seen before, if you are not on break. Okay, so before we move to the next exercise, I just wanted to show you an, yes, just this one. So one of the things that is when we're actually doing validation, and this is difficult sometimes to see how Excel works, and this is strange, is that validation only applies, basically imagine is if Excel is actually typing for you. So normally we're going to do lookup in a minute, and lookup is connected. So every time we change something, it will modify something else. But here, for example, let's say that I decided that I want to change my validation rule, and I want to change now, I will put it in Spanish. Bien, okay, y mal. So it didn't actually change it. It didn't, basically I changed my validation, similar rule, but it only applies when I am, it only actually works or uses when I am actually in the process. Basically right now, imagine that I am typing. So instead of typing me mal, Excel is typing for me. Excel is typing for me. And so if I change again my validation, it is not going to change what I say is selected before. And even here, for example, even here, let's say I'm going to actually select here, even I'm just going to do the first one, the first digital camera. If I come here and I modify, I change in my list, but in the first one I type, it actually didn't modify. But if I type again, now it's actually changed. It modified in the next one, but it's not actually, they are not linked. As soon as I finish entering my information, the validation process ends. So it only validates basically typing or the entrance or the input of the information, not with actually what we have as information basically, or capture or in our data. So that's going to be different than what we're going to do in a minute. So let's actually close and let's open now the file that says lookup. So you should have one that says lookup. And you want to open the one that says lookup. And let me start sharing my screen, or let's just want to make sure that I'm sharing what I should be sharing. Can you see, if someone can actually help me, can you see my screen? And now it should actually say
Yes.
items.
Yes.
Okay, so now I just want to make sure that everyone is there and everyone is alive. Tell us, type us, let's actually, I don't know if you have done the 3, 2, 1, let's wait. So I'm going to ask you to actually type your favorite, I don't know if it's your actually, or maybe the function that you use the most in Excel. Type it and don't press enter. Don't press enter. Let's see if you can actually, you are awake. I will actually type the one that I use most also. The function, or it could be just whatever you use the most. Or the thing is more valuable. Just type it. And now let's actually when I say 3, 2, 1, you will actually, when I say 1, you will actually press enter. So 3, 2, and 1. Let's see. Okay, we have a variety. Good. Good. Okay. So lookup is I think it's a very powerful one. as everything else has limitations, but I think it's a very, very, very interesting. So we are arriving to the most important areas of, I think, of our seminar today. So we always actually get information, maybe in this case, let's say that we have some products, the price, maybe a price list of products, and also by category, or but these are just basically is just a regular table. We could always do we can actually also format as a table. That is it's always better. Oops, I did something wrong. But it's not necessary, but that's always actually better. That way Excel can help us more. So how lookup actually, what lookup does? Basically, lookup is a function. When we actually were doing validation, we were using a list. So Excel was actually showing us a list. In the validation process, on the lookup process, I'm going to start little by little, and we'll actually end up with something I think is more powerful. You want to follow this in the handout. The first thing is I want to show you the actual lookup function, or what do we need to enter. So actually, what we're going to ask Excel is, we're going to provide Excel a product, or in this case a product, or something to look for, and it will find it, and it will go. Excel needs to understand that it's a table, and it will give us some information back from a different column. So let's do it. So let's say that I want to actually put item. I'm just typing. I'm typing, and I will put price also. So first, what I want, I will actually start by looking for a price. Also, I could also put those here category also. Okay, but let's start looking for a price. So imagine this list is very short. It's only 20 items, but imagine if you have 3,000 items. So it actually takes more time. And price could be something, but it could be maybe the numbers of years worked, or it could be anything. So let's do it. So let's actually do, let's start with the insert function. We just want to actually facilitate this process. And let's do vertical lookup. It's VLOOKUP. We'll start with that one, vertical lookup, because right now we're actually using the vertical axis to look for information. And let's ask Excel to look for the function. In my case, I already found it. And I will double click or click OK. And these are all the parameters or arguments that I need. I will give you some time. I will give you 1 minute, or if you want to start typing, if you want to type, maybe you are already there in the arguments. You can actually, is everyone there in the arguments? A couple. How are we doing with the arguments? Okay, we have one. Others? Have you found the argument for lookup? Are you there? I'm not found. It's just if we are there. Okay, so the first thing is actually, the first argument that we need is, what do you want to look for? And in this case, we'll go start building. I'm just going to type scarf. I want the price of the scarf. Then Excel is asking me, okay, what is your array of information or your table? So what I need is actually to show Excel, okay, so this is my table. And if you see, Excel already actually enter, I don't know if you can actually see it in yours, because I signal Excel that this is a table. Excel already told me, okay, table 2. It says table 2. But it could also be just the columns. It could be the actual array. it's just easier because if you know that Excel is putting your table, or you can even change the name of the table. That's what will you know, it just facilitates the process. And this is where it gets a little complicated. Let's see if I can show you. So Excel is going to actually, for lookup, this is something that you need to remember. There's no, Excel always actually, when you say vertical lookup, it always actually looks in what is called the first column. And when I'm talking about the first column, it's really not, it looks on the first column, and then based on the first column, I could ask the information from the second column, third column, and it goes on. It's not A, B, or C. It's actually, that is strange how it manages, but I will show you why. So in this case, we need the information from column 2 because that's price. So column 1, in this case, is going to be A. Column 2 is going to be B. So I'm just, instead of actually entering B that normally we'll think is B, I'm going to enter actually column 2. And if you see in the argument box, Excel already actually is difficult. I don't think that because of my screen is going to be, and I can't, sorry, I can't actually make this bigger, but it's already showing me 4.99. So if you want, if you verify actually the price of the scarf is actually $29.99. And the reasoning is because Excel is actually showing me the price of greeting card. And this is just, is something that I think is, we just need to be aware. Excel is actually right now, as it is, I need to actually enter one more argument that is going to be a false statement. So if you see here, if it's submitted is true, basically Excel, for this, the range lookup, is actually looking for something similar to the actual word. If I put false, oops. If I put false, I am indicating in Excel that it needs to be an exact match. And if you actually did it, now it's actually showing me or previewing me that is going to be the price $29.99. So let me just click OK. And now I have in this cell, using this lookup, it's telling me that the price of the scarf is $29.99. But let's actually make something nicer. Let's actually make something nicer. So instead of actually me typing, or maybe asking my supervisor to type in these arguments, I could also use, I could actually signal, or I could send my cell, I could actually just type here, use my arguments here, instead of actually having, now it's going to actually always, whatever I type here, is going to give me the price here. And I click OK. So right now it's showing me no one available because right now it's not looking for anything. So if I do, for example, T-set, it provides me the actual price. If I do, for example, let's make a mistake. Coffee mug. It doesn't show. Why? Because it's an exact, that is actually something, it's only actually looking for the actual, it needs to be the exact name. It gives me the price. So let's actually now, I will give you some time to do the same, but at the same time, I want price, and now I want that you actually create one for the category. So it's going to give me, as soon as I enter a name here, it's going to give me the price and also the category. So try it and try to do the category. It's going to be also very similar. Look up. And I will actually, so you will look the value in the same location. Basically, it's going to be here. And the only difference, remember, is this is column number 1, column number 2, column number 3. I will give you a minute, and as soon as you finish, type the word super. Type the word super, and then I know that actually we're on the right track. Let's see if we get 10 supers. We are a super team. No, so look for, use the lookup function. Yeah, we have 3 supers. And we have 5 supers. And I will show you something else. So if we arrive to the 5 supers, I will actually show you, no, 10 supers, 10 supers. So that's what I told you. 10 supers, I will show you something that is, I think, super cool. So again, remember, we're using the function lookup. And at this point, what we're trying to do is that you type in the name of an item, and it's going to give you the price. And now we are also wanting to add, and that's where I needed the supers, we're going to add the third column. So it's going to give us 2 different things. I need 4 more supers. And if you have questions, if I lost you also, I'm just giving you some time because that's the only way you're going to kind of experience. Let me just do it. So first, what I need to actually tell Excel is in which cell I'm going to, well, I could also type it there, but we don't want to do that. That's actually, it's not very friendly for our users. So in which cell the user is going to type what is our target. So I'm going to say G6. Where is my array? My array is actually going to be this table. So I will actually select the entire table. It's actually saying table 2, all the cells in table 2. And then it's asking me, okay, so what column do you want back? Or which cell in which column do you want? So this is column 1, column 2 is price, column 3 is actually, so instead of actually me typing C, normally we'll think this is C, but actually we need to type column 3. And we need to type false. I don't think that we can actually type something else. If we actually omit or use true, we are risking the integrity of our data because we could actually be getting wrong results. So I think that we need to make sure that we are actually having exact matches. If we are not having exact matches, we need to find a way, because if not, we can actually missing our integrity. And now let's type. Let's actually look for a specific item. So in this case, I'm typing green card, and then I'm getting the price, I'm getting the gift. I could even be typing, for example, the name of employee or an account, and then I could actually be getting several columns, the information of several columns. So I'm facilitating the process. Again, what is important, this is something that I continue to actually talk about, but I'm trying to separate, this is the information, and I could actually have this information in a different worksheet. I could have it in a different worksheet. And this is the information that I'm visualizing. I have my report basically in one area, and my table in the other. I'm trying to avoid actually modifying or highlighting here, because every time I actually get closer to my actual data, I'm taking a risk. Well, maybe it doesn't happen to you, but I am very distracted. And this is according to my wife. So I could be making a lot of mistakes. So I want to avoid actually being closer to my actual data and try to create reports that are in a different table, or a little bit, I want to have a buffer. That way I prevent from errors. It's actually very important. So anyway, so we have here, so one of the problems actually I see for my, let's say that I am a new supervisor. I don't know the exact names of how do we have the scarf, for example. I don't have the actual name. So one of the things that I need to do is, okay, so what else can I do to help my user actually get the information?
Evaluation.
Hmm?
Evaluation.
With a validation?
Yes.
Yeah. So actually now we're going to combine what we just did before. We know that we have a list there. We know that, so we can actually combine, we can do a validation. So let's actually do it. So I will actually enter, I will create a data validation. I will do a list. Remember actually you saw before. And in this case, my source is going to be this list here. And then I will click enter. And so basically now, I mean, even doing this for my supervisor is going to be easier. So now actually my supervisor only, or it could be also me. I don't need to go, you know, this is actually simple. This is 20, but if we have 3,000, I don't actually need to go all. I could also just basically select the one I want, and it will give me the information. Something that you need to be aware, and this is a limitation of, there's actually two things that I think are important that you need to be aware is, one, lookup is going to always actually look from the top, and as soon as it matches, it finds a match, it will give you that information. So let's say, for example, that you have 2 Eduardo Millets in the list, and you want the second Eduardo Millet, you're always going to give you the first one. So it's go from top to bottom in the vertical one, and as soon as it finds one, it will give you the information. So that is a limitation. It kind of makes sense, but it's a limitation. You need to be aware. So if you have information that you have in a way duplicate, you have 2 the same, you need to add an identifier or something. That way you can make sure that are you talking about the first Eduardo Millet or the second Eduardo Millet, for example. And the other thing that is kind of different is that it is always actually talking about, this is, in this case now, my first column on column number 1, even though it looks is in column B, that technically could be column 2, it always starts, this is the one that is going to start looking. So that is column number 1. So this one actually continues to be column number 2 and column number 3, even if it's in the D. So it doesn't matter. It's always actually, when you define what is your array or your table, the first one to the left is column number 1, and then it goes. That's why actually Excel is using, I think, this 1, 2, and 3 instead of B, C, and D. So we know that how it wants to manipulate that information. Anyway, so let's continue. I have all the things that I want to show you from the lookup. I'm just going to take this back. I think it's very useful. So let's continue with the lookup. Let's say that actually now we know we have a price list, but we receive an order from a different department. They want to purchase some t-shirts, and we have the price of the t-shirt here. But we just got a new update from the prices. So let's actually check. If I check the price of a medium t-shirt, according to this list is 7. But then when I go here, it's actually 11. So it changed. The price changed. So what I want is actually, I want to have a new price. I don't want to actually type. In this case, it's very easy because it's only 3 items. But imagine if you have a list of 100 items, I don't want to be looking for the item and then putting the item here again and changing it. So I want to actually just have Excel to go and look at the price and then tell me the price. So normally, actually in real life, we will use maybe an ID number. That's actually more powerful. Just for simplicity, I'm using the actual t-shirt size, but normally it's better actually to have an identifier. But we can do it because we know that this is going to be also easy to find here. So let me do it. So I will actually call my function, my lookup function. Lookup. My lookup value in this case is going to be the t-shirt size. Then Excel is asking me, okay, so where's your array, your table where you have your price list in this case? So I'll go to my array and I will select, I could also select, for example, my columns. And then it's asking me, what information do you want back? So I want the price. So the price is going to be column number 2. And I need to put false for sure. And now Excel is actually telling me, okay, the price for a medium t-shirt is $11. Let's actually populate, let's actually copy. And for a small, let's also validate, because I could actually, I make a lot of errors, so let's actually make sure. So for a large, Excel found 12. So let's see if we're actually on the right track. So a large 12. Yeah. And then, so it looks, so what happened here? I will just, let's see if you're awake. There's an error there. Let's see who can actually find the error. You can type, why do you think there's an error there? You can tell us why. I will stop until someone actually participates.
You're missing the dash between the X and the large, the wording.
Yeah, and actually this is going to happen in many cases. Sometimes the consistency of the information, and that's why I was stressing this validation portion. So actually, it's a very simple mistake, but let me show you. And it could actually appear that we are talking about the same thing, and really we are talking about the same thing, but it's just a little dash. So I have options. I could actually change the name. Normally, the name in my item. Let me just do it. And look what is going to happen. When I go back to my table, now I have the price. And this is different when, remember we did the validation and we were actually doing the list. It was actually different. This is actually information is linked. So if I change the price, for example, of the item here, let's say it went up to 20, it changed. So the information is linked. So everything I modify in one, my list, it will actually go and modify in the other. When we did the previous validation and the drop down in that case, it isn't linked. So what it's actually doing in Excel is in that specific moment, it types and then the link is broken. So it's just, there's no right or wrong. It's just how it is. Obviously, lookup is very powerful, very powerful. Any questions? Any questions in lookup? I think that I want to show you how is the horizontal lookup. Normally we don't use horizontal, so I don't expect that you do it. So I just want to actually see if we are doing okay with the lookup. Very powerful. Or let's say actually maybe if you can actually, some of you could type, were you familiar with lookup before, or this is the first time? So first time or familiar? So first time or familiar? Just a little poll, I guess. First time, okay. Familiar. First time. Yeah, I think it's a very, very, very useful tool that, the more we do it, we get better, and it's important. I mean, sometimes, yeah, a lot of first times, I guess, a lot of familiar also. So even if we get sometimes we need to be very careful if we actually get a worksheet that is using lookup, because here also the anchoring becomes important. So because I have seen actually cases where, for example, in this case, right now Excel starts to look here. But then if I am actually looking here, it goes like 28 rows below to start looking. So it doesn't look it doesn't actually start from here, but it starts looking, let's say, from here. So anchoring becomes actually important down the road. So in this case, it is actually looking, let's see where it's actually looking here. Because the price list is actually, because my price list is actually, I define it as a table. Excel already knows what is going on or how it needs to look. But if I didn't, it could actually be, there could be some problems. Let me just, before we are going to actually move to pivot tables or pivot tables, let me show you what is a horizontal lookup. That way, at least you know, but I don't think it's very, very common. They say that actually you have a table that is actually constructed in this way, is horizontal. So basically, when we were looking for the items, remember, in this case, in the vertical lookup, Excel was actually looking from top to bottom in this column, in this direction, top to bottom. When you actually do horizontal, it's actually looking in rows. So it starts from left to right. When it finds, for example, the price of scarf, will go now, this is my row 1 or my column 1, row 1. Then this is my row 2 and row 3. So this is another way. I don't think that is the way we are used to. It's not very common, but anyway, I just think it's important at least that you understand what is the difference between the horizontal and the vertical lookup. The same, actually, I just want to show you the same arguments. They're going to be the same arguments. It's just the way actually Excel is going to look. So this is basically 1 or 2 or 3. Now it's talking about rows, but again, it's not, well, in this case, it's 1, 2, 3. But if your first row, let's say this is actually your first row, even though there is, according to Excel, is the third row, it's actually your first row. Any questions on lookup? Okay, 1, 2, 3. Let's actually continue and let's do, let's close this one and let's open our pivot table number 1, please. Okay, let me start sharing my screen. Okay. Okay, so imagine normally we get this information and I want to create a report. In this case, it's going to be a pivot table by month, maybe by region. I'm sure it doesn't look, you could actually be more creative and have something nicer, but anyway, just the way my supervisor wants. The supervisor likes those colors. So I want to actually have my report ready. This is actually, before we actually do it, I just want to actually explain. I'm pushing this to have our data, our information in a separate, this actually, it becomes more clear. So this is my information. Imagine this is the information that I'm extracting from maybe from the server or whatever. So that is my information on my data set. And I'm creating a report in a different worksheet. It could be in the same one, but I'm trying to avoid, and even sometimes if you're curious, you can even protect your data. Excel has some ways you can actually protect your information. I forgot how to do it, but anyways, somewhere I forgot. Yeah, here in the review section, You can even protect, for example, your information. That way people can see it, can actually even do some manipulation, but it will protect your original tables. And it's always better. Imagine if you are creating a report and someone actually, you create a report and someone actually deleted some rows, the report is going to be wrong. Even if you did it right, it's going to be wrong. So it's always actually nicer to have your report, meaning how I'm actually going from raw information, maybe to from data, I'm sorry, to information, even to analysis. Analysis is more developed. So let's start, for example. So the easiest way, and again, I continue to push, we can always actually highlight the area. And we could actually tell Excel, well, this is a table. This is a table. And it has actually headers. You don't need to do that, but anyway, it's always easier. And now, even you can actually see here, I could even change the name of my table. So let's say, for example, we're talking about maybe the month of, I think the last one is January, or March, I think, March, no? So let's say actually March. These are the expenses of March, or until March. Okay. Well, March. Okay. So now let's actually start doing our first pivot table. And here I'll do insert. And it's very simple. It's going to be actually simpler because the data is the way it should be. You see, I have only personnel. I don't have subtotals. I don't need the subtotals, actually. Subtotals are for the report, not for the data. The data is basically a list of transactions. If I want to do subtotals, I want to do totals, I want to group them, that is perfect. But we are really in a way manipulating information. We should do that in another area. So this is actually just information transactions. And normally, in this case, I don't have it for simplicity, but normally you could actually have transactions by day and by hour, by time. That's actually it's better. Because you could actually, even if you think about, for example, you could even create how many people are in the morning in your office, how many people are in the afternoon. So you can actually have interesting data. So we could actually have one column that has specific times or many different things, but we are actually not grouping at this point. We have the raw data there. So let's do a pivot table. It's going to be actually automatic because the way the data is actually right now, and that is what you should do. You will create a report later. So the first thing actually, when I click on pivot table, Excel is asking me, okay, so where is the information that you want to, and in this case, actually Excel is already telling me, okay, it's the table that's called March. It could be just an area. I'm just going to select, but you don't need to. I'm just going to select, for example, I could select an area, but I could also use my information that I have. And then the second question is actually asking me is, you want a new worksheet or an existing one? I prefer a new worksheet, but I could also add it in this specific area, for example. So I'm going to click OK. And now I have a new worksheet where I have basically, I'm ready to start creating my pivot table. I want to stop here and see how are we doing. If we are doing okay, if I need to stop, how are we? Are we okay? Doing okay with the? Are you there? Basically, before we continue, I just want to make sure that everyone's there ready to create their first. Yeah. Okay. We see one. Okay. Okay. So perfect. That feedback actually helps me a lot. So let's actually, we know what we want. We want first. Let's actually start. We want to control. Let's start controlling our personnel by rows. I'm actually just is pulling and drop in my personnel, and then I want to control my expenses. So right now I see my all my personnel, all my expenses. Also, I could also add, for example, the months. So now I'm actually going to pull the months to the columns. And now I can see the same personnel. I have the total. That's why we don't need to create the total, because the Excel is going to actually do those things for us. And then I could also see the expenses each month. But then actually my supervisor really wanted to see the regions. So I could actually also put the category regions. So now I am able to see the region, or by region, and the personnel. So here you can actually see, for example, the East region, their expenses were $700, and 350 were from Katie, and 250 from Melissa. So that actually helped us. It actually now is not only data, but really is providing us information. It's an interesting report, and we could even be helping with some analysis at this point. We could include maybe some formatting, some colors. That could also even help our supervisor or us to actually present a better report. But just following up the example, I'm just going to pull out the personnel. I just want to see actually sales by region, or expenses by region. And now let's start formatting the table. I just want to show you, this is actually something, it happened to me at the beginning, like, so where is my phone, where can I actually move this? How do I can actually change? You see, I don't have my screen for my pivot table. So as soon as I click on my pivot table, it appears. And also you can actually see that Excel is actually showing me two different submenus, one for analysis and one for design. So right now, let's actually change a little bit the design and be creative. Be creative. You can actually change it so it looks maybe the way you want it. And this has also happened to me one time. If you actually click here, you will delete basically the submenu or this area. So now even if I click here, I don't see my fields. But I see here on top that I have my analysis and my design. So I could also ask again to show my list formula. Oops, no, I'm sorry. It's field settings, that's what I need. No, what is it?
It's on the top right, where it says show field list.
Okay, yeah, field list, I'm sorry, yeah. And it happened to me the first time. This happens to me. It's like, well, what did I did with my so it's actually here, show, yeah, thank you. So I could also start changing, for example, let's actually change, and now instead of doing the sum, let's actually change this to average. We could also do average, for example. And now it doesn't look like numbers or like currency, basically. And we know it's currency. So also we can actually change the format. So let's change the format here, numbers. We can also change it on top, but this is actually better. So currency, I'm just going to do 0 spaces, decimals. And now we have, it looks nicer. It looks nicer, and it looks very similar to maybe what my supervisor wants. Maybe I will make it just a little bit bigger so you can actually see it better. But this is just, and now let's actually, let's do some filtering. We were actually doing last time some filtering. We could also do some filtering here. I could select, okay, I don't want to see all the areas, just north and south. And then also I want to filter here. I just want to see February. So this is just one way of manipulate, basically. But what is important is we're manipulating, but really the report. And if I go back to my table, this is clean. Nothing is actually happening here. And that's really what we want. We can actually move this. We can even delete. We can actually, but this is just a report. And this is our table. So at this point, you should actually have your table look similar to this. I want to show you something else, but I just want to make sure that we are here and everyone is there. Are we okay with the table? Let's put okay if you are there with your, basically at this point, I want to see average of expenses by region and by month. So just okay, just okay, that's works for me. Okay. Okay, so let's continue. Let's continue. Now, what I want to do is just add something, and this is just a nice thing, and I think it's important to learn because I think Excel is going to do more interesting things later with this. It's called the slicer. Basically, it's another way of filtering, and it's trying to make the use of the reports easier for others. So we are the creators of the information, but someone is actually using the information, so we want to make it easier. So first we need to select our pivot table area, and then we have our submenus here, and we want to actually add what is called a slicer. Basically, a slicer is going to slice information. Basically, it's a filter. It's just nicer again. It's just easier to use. So I need to select my information, and then I will actually add my slicer. And the slicer is actually going to ask me, okay, so what do you want to slice? And I will do expenses. Or no, actually, let's do personnel. No, let's do regions. Regions is easier at the beginning. So let's do regions, and then click OK. And basically, you can move the slicer. And basically, it's a filter. It is a filter. So I can say, well, I just want to see south. I just want to see west. And if you actually do control, you could be selecting 2 areas. If you do control, you could be selecting 4 areas. And it could be the personnel name, for example. And you have all these, if you see here, I have region. But there's, you could actually also, for example, let's say that we want to actually add another slicer. Now I'm going to add one for personnel. So I could go and type Flores and it will show me, or Michael. I don't see it because right now I'm showing the names of the region, but in this case I'm selecting 2, and that's why they are in different regions. But I could go back here, for example, and I say, well, I really want to see the personnel also. So now I'm actually seeing those 2, and my slicers are actually working. If I click on some of these areas, I could see the personnel that I want to see, and also what regions they belong to. So let me stop here. I want to show you something else with pivot table number 2. But I just want to see how are we doing. Are we doing okay? Yes or no? Yes, okay. Okay, so let's actually continue. So again, I continue to stress this situation of creating reports. Let's say that actually my supervisor already actually very happy. Actually, even my supervisor is already used to this report. The way, the colors, the functions, all these different things. So what happens next month? And actually, I think someone actually was saying every month we have the same information. We need to actually go over the same situations, over the same things that we need to actually run. We know our end product, our output, we already know what we want to do. Just the information, the data is going to change. So how do we actually do that? Well, let's do a little exercise. I'm going to close this one. I'm going to ask you to open pivot table number 2. I will do a little exercise. It's opening. And just for I just want to make sure, are you seeing my report that is actually, it says pivot table number 2? I'm actually highlighting yellow right now. Are you seeing the one that has yellow? I just want to validate that you are seeing that specific one. Okay, so I think that someone said yes. Okay, so now this is actually the first table we saw before. And there's actually several ways you can do this, what I'm going to do. I just want to show you this function or this way of actually presenting the information that I think is going to be very helpful. So we have this table here, basically, and if you see, it has data for January, February, March. Then the next month, we have actually now, in this month, we also have information for April. We have, basically, it's the next report. So let's actually start thinking, okay, so this is the first one we got before. We remember we were actually working with our pivot table. And let's actually try to emulate what we just did before. So I'm going to actually put region here. I will take my personnel. I will also put my months here. And also, please change, and this is just a practice, change to currency with no decimals. So that's actually what we had before, very similar. You just did a sum, and last time we had an average. But if you see here, we have January, February, and March. So the next period actually arrives. We have the next data. This is actually now is in data 2 in this case. So how do we do it? And this is why if we are actually able to start separating our data to our reports, it is very easy. So here, the only thing that I really need to do is change my data source. So I will select my pivot table. Again, I have my submenus here, or my tabs here. I will actually do the analyze. And Excel has an option called change data source. And look at what is going to happen here on my tabs or my worksheets. Right now, if you look, only the final report is highlighted. Look what is going to happen. So when I click, Excel is showing me that this report is connected to the data, the worksheet that says data. But I could actually show Excel that I want to use now, data 2. And then I could select, for example, my information. I'm actually selecting my columns. I just want to verify, okay, I'm selecting everything. And then I click OK. And now I have April. And I will explain you why I have this blank in a minute. but now I have April here. What is important is that I really didn't modify my report. What I modified was my source of information. So if we're able to split, now it's actually ready. My report is ready. It's just the way my supervisor wants my report. So we have a blank here, and this is just because I selected, actually, if you see what I did, my source of information is actually goes, if I actually only select from here, the blank goes away. Also, if I select as a table, but I don't want to so please try to actually make or change the data source of your table, just to make sure that you are able to do it. And as a final exercise for this pivot table, I will actually ask you to create 2 pivot tables. One is going to show the average. One is going to also show the total or the sum of expenses. And what I want to see is actually that you are able to also to create a slicer. So try to create another one here. So you can actually remember last time when I selected the information, I'm going to actually tell Excel that this is a table, or maybe here, that this is a table. So Excel already knows that this is a table. So from here, I want to create a pivot table. Instead of actually using a new worksheet, I want to do an existing one. And I want to select another area in my previous report. And then I click OK. So in this area, in this worksheet, I have actually 2 pivot tables. I'm going to actually eliminate my filters. And here, if you can actually create one, I'm going to do it really fast, and I'm going to give you some time to do it. So in this case, I have 2 different pivot tables, and it could be actually many different things, but I have one for sum of expenses and one for average expenses. And this is just one way you can actually start helping your supervisor. So when you finish this, let me know. We'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll continue. But so actually, let's come back at 12:10. 12:10. I'll be here. Well, yeah, I'll be here basically. But just take a if you need to actually do something, and we'll come back at 12:10 to do our final exercise. Thank you. Just try to finish your pivot table exercise. Okay, we're getting ready to start. If you're ready, if you want to actually, the last worksheet we're going to work with is one that's called index and match. These are the two last functions we're going to actually do. And so let me just pull the participant chat here. Okay. So we're ready to go. Basically, this is what we want, and very similar to lookup. Very similar to lookup. I think that Excel needs to do something. Microsoft needs to do needs to polish these two different functions. We're going to combine them. But anyway, we need to work with what we have. So basically, the first thing is that we're going to use an index to basically to have a tabulation, or maybe imagine this is our first, what is called our array of information. The totals actually don't count. The totals don't count because that is just the summation. That's really not information, but just the manipulation of information. So we are not really, those are not relevant. So this is our real information. Well, we can say the sales or the salaries of these individuals for those months. So what we're going to do, and we'll do it in a minute, is basically I could tell Excel, okay, give me row one. Row one in this case is going to be actually, again, we need to, the array is, as in lookup, it starts here. So this is row one, column one. So row one, column one. And then Excel is going to tell us what is in that specific location. So that is actually using what is called the index function. Let's see if you can actually see it. This is the index function, where first I'm telling Excel my array of information. In this case, my array or my table, but it's really my array, goes from this point, from D2 to D9. D2, so this is the array. This is the array. And then based on that array, I'm telling Excel, okay, so in that array of information, look for row one, column one. So at the beginning, it's not going to be so useful, but that's actually what we are going to be doing. So let's start. Then the next step is going to be actually, instead of actually doing, because it's difficult to know that this is row column one, column two, and column three. Instead of actually typing numbers, we could even also type in the actual names. We could also type the names or copy and paste the names, and Excel will identify, will match. That's why we'll use the match function. In this case, it's going to match the information. And in this case, what we are doing is basically using what is called a vector, just this section or this section, and Excel is going to go one by one, and it will match whatever information is here. So when it finds, it's going to tell me, okay, so this is position one, position two, position three, position four. So this one is actually, I found a match in position 4, and that's what we have. And then for February, the match function is going to start looking here, 1, 2, and 3. So when it finds a match, in this case, it's going to be actually 2, is going to give us, that is in the position 2. So this is just one way, similar to lookup, but we don't have the limitation actually that we're always looking in column number 1. So let's see how we can actually do this. We have a couple of minutes, so we can actually, let's see where we can arrive to the last one. In this final exercise, I'm actually combining everything. And I could also select using a list. I could select the name, I could also select the month, and it will give me the actual result or the expense for the specific month, specific time. So this is just one way. Another way of actually, we can actually do some lookup or look for information. So remember, we are going to actually, this is actually, there's no, here is just basically typing. So I'm just going to copy and paste. And let's start doing the index. So the first thing is that we need to understand what is the index. The index is basically, we provide a map of to Excel, basically a map of our information. And based on coordinate system, or like in this case, columns and rows, Excel will tell me what information is there. So let's actually call our index function. Index. I'm going to start with the first one. And this is just for simplicity. And the first thing that Excel is actually asking me is for my array. Basically, that is the only thing that Excel needs. So where is your array of information? We don't want to include the subtotals. We could, but it's really it's not a good idea because we could get confused. So let's actually select our array. So my array in this case is going to be, and it could be different yours, from B6 to D13. And then I could even type here if you want to just practice a little bit. So if I want to actually get, let's say that you want to get the information from Davis from February. So this is actually the row is going to be 1, 2, 3. So it's going to be the third row. And it's going to be 1, 2. So it's going to be month number 2. And again, we are not counting the column number A, or we are not counting all the rows. We are just counting based on the array, based on the information or the little table or the array that we gave Excel. And if you can actually see, I don't know if you can see it in mine, but you can see it maybe in yours. Excel is already telling me, okay, so the number that you, based on that location, your number is 235. So that's the, let's say the salary. But I don't want to be typing this information. Maybe I want to actually put something in my Excel where people actually can do it easily. So I will actually say, well, this is going to be the row. This number is going to be the column. And then I click enter. I don't know what I did here. Let me just, but if you got it right, you don't need to do this again. I think because I was actually showing some things. So this is my array. Oh. My array. Then my row is going to be here. I will enter my row there. I will enter my column here. Okay, let me just, I will type, I don't know, maybe there's something below. Oh, I don't know what's going on here.
I got the same result, but if you type a value in the row and column cell, you actually get the result you're looking for.
Really?
Uh-huh.
Sometimes it's, because I have used these tables before, sometimes it acts funny. And I don't know, and thank you, I appreciate your, it's like, it always happens to me, like, wow, because sometimes there's things below, and I don't know why it was going on. Anyway, thank you. So basically what I am doing right now is using the formula index. Let me just make this bigger. Here's my array, and that is really the key. The key is you need to tell Excel, this is my array, this is my column 1, column 2, column 3. So I'm telling Excel, okay, look in column 1. I'm sorry, see column 1, and then in this case, row 2, and give me the what you have there. I did. Yeah, row 1, I'm sorry, I got this, but anyway, row 1 is this one, and column 2. So that is just one way of doing it. So now let's actually continue. And what I want is actually now, instead of actually using the actual numbers, I want to start combining with match. So what I want is to say, well, in this case, I want to look for a specific month. So I will put month here. And then I will put actually, I want to know what is the position of the month. So I'm just going to do a match here. I'm going to actually, just for, so I don't get, I'm going to actually, let's say March. But here I'm going to allow to change. Actually, you can actually change this. So you can actually type anything here and it will give us the position of March. But we know that the position is going to be 3. But let's see if the function match could actually help us. So match. And again, the Excel, the first thing is asking me, okay, so what do you want to look for? I'm going to say, in this case, the cell, my cell is I10. This is going to be, I'm going to type in whatever I want as a month. It needs to be actually the ones that I have, and needs to be exactly the exact match. And then my array, I'm just going to select all the possibilities. So in this case are 3. And then the type is going to be, I think I could leave it actually blank. Let's see. And then I'm going to actually type enter. So right now Excel here is actually matching whatever name I put here. And it's going to look in this array, and it is going to actually tell me in which position it is. So now let's actually find the name. Very similar to lookup, but now in this case, actually I have more possibilities of how do I want to look for the information. So here I'm going to actually put the position of the name. I'm going to do another match here. So the value, and this is just so I can actually type in the value that I want. I'm going to actually signal that is going to be in that cell. My array in this case is going to be actually, this is my personnel, all the personnel that I have. And then I click enter. So in this case, I could actually type, for example, well, I'm just going to copy and paste. That way is the exact number. And I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I have 5. So the 5th name, the position is number 5 in that array. So now I have actually the coordinates here, and then I could actually do my index, or I could actually ask Excel using the same system we did here before. We could also ask Excel to actually get us the information. So I will actually, I'm just going to do it from here again. So I will use my index. The array is the same array, but now the information is by row. My row is going to be the name. And the column number is going to be actually my months. And let's see if this is right. So right now I'm asking actually, let's say that I'm asking the salary of Flores on February. So let's see. This is February and this is Flores. So I could also type here, for example, March. And it's going to change. Now let's see if this is right. Flores and March. So this is basically the difference. We were actually doing a lookup. We were limited. Now we are able to move in all the directions. And we could also do, for example, we could also do, instead of actually typing the name, I'm just going to do it here so it's just easier. I could also do a validation. So let's actually, well, let me, here in data and data validation. I'm just going to do a list, and my source is going to be here. And then I can actually click and I will get I could also change this one. I could actually also add a data validation point here. I could do a list here. And then I will select the personnel. I'm not including the totals because it's really not what we want to do. And here we go. So basically now you could also get all the information. You don't need, by the way, you don't need this information. You could actually have it as part of your index, but I want to show you what these two functions are doing. So match is basically looking and telling me in what position is actually each month. And the other one is telling me where is in what position is actually the name. And then I combine them and get the index. I would like, well, this is the index and match, I think is useful. I think the one that we use, I think is more important is lookup, but anyway, I think it's also so nice to know how it works. So match and index. We're arriving, actually we're out of time. So I would like maybe to have 5 minutes to, like, if there's specific questions, I don't know if comments before we leave. Let me also type you my email. So, oops, let me just type you my email for everyone. Oh, so there's my email. You know, if there's some, you know, I know this, you know, every time is fast. There's a lot of things. We covered a lot of material. We try to actually cover the material that I believe is more important related to data and how do we manipulate. Remember, I think the most important thing is always try to actually have your data in one location or your information in one, and try to create reports. Try to actually create a buffer. That way you have your data actually more protected, I guess. any questions, anything that I can help, my email is there. More than happy actually to help later. But I think that we had already a lot of hours, so I think you deserve a great weekend, I guess. So if you are good to go, let's say type maybe a great weekend, and I will stay here. But if you want to leave the room, I don't know exactly. You can always say great weekend, I guess.